Hi, everyone. Welcome to the House Democratic Caucus. It's Tuesday, January 20th. Don't know if anyone watched the championship game last night, but it was very exciting. Indiana won, which I'm kind of partial to them. I have no idea reason why. But it was a great game. So glad everyone's here today. And I also stayed up late, so that's perfect. Lori Houghton, I represent Essex Junction. We have a full agenda today. First, I want to do some announcements. So this week, we are still doing our normal floor hours of Wednesday and Thursday at 3 and Friday at 9:30. Next week, we're changing Wednesday and Thursday to 3:30. So you'll stay in your committees longer, be on the floor at 3:30. Today, as a reminder, we should be back in our House seats at 12:45 to get ready for the governor's budget address. Want to remind people too about decorum on the floor. Anytime you stand up to speak, whether it's an announcement or a bill report or point of order, you talk to the speaker and through the speaker. You do not move your head around, which is so easy to do because we want to talk to our colleagues, but that's the decorum. Also, as a reminder, there's a couple things on the legislative website. There was an Act 73 overview that was given last Friday, a couple days ago, which was great. It was given by JFO and Ledge Council. So I highly recommend people look at that. And you can also send it out to your communities. We did this week on Front Porch Forum. So feel free to send that out. And then House Appropriations did the budget review 2 weeks ago. And I think Robin's not here, but I think there's another one this Friday, and that is out there as well. Lastly, and most importantly, we have our annual speakers soiree, February 12th at Vermont Fine Arts College, thank you, at the annual hall beginning at 6 p.m. And Liam has sent out a reminder and how to get tickets. And again, this is something that you can invite your community to as well. So hope to see everyone there. It's always a great event. Okay, so on the agenda today, we have two bills that committees, if they've taken up, it's just a walkthrough, but we want to get the information out to folks on what could be coming. One is a tenant landlord bill out of housing in general, and one is a lottery bill out of GovOps. And then we're going to get an update on the vaccine bill that's coming out. I think it's going to be voted out today. And then we have a prescription drug bill that House Healthcare has been taken up that will be voted out soon as well. So 2 things about to be voted out, 2 things just to get it on your radar, and we'll make sure we have time for questions for all of it and get you all to lunch. So we're going to start with Mark. Yep.
Morning, everybody. So I think it goes without saying that the whole tenant landlord area is fraught, and the status quo is not a good one for either tenants or landlords. For tenants, if they lose their housing for any reason, given the shortage, it's like a river into homelessness. When buildings are sold, sometimes for a lot more than they were originally purchased, landlords often raise the rent to the point where tenants have to leave. On the other hand, landlords, particularly small landlords, feel like this is not a business they want to stay in or be in because it takes so long, 4 to 6 months at least, to evict people. And during that time, they don't get any rent. If they're drug dealers in the building, the other tenants are terrified and won't testify. And so it's hard for them to get those tenants out as well, whether this is true, whether they're for-profit landlords or nonprofit. And it is indirectly, from the landlord's perspective, a housing supply problem. Because a lot of landlords would be willing to expand their businesses, but they're afraid to because of the situation. So it's really a lousy situation. Bills have been introduced in the House and the Senate for years, pro-tenant bills, pro-landlord bills, and they haven't gone anywhere. So some may consider it a fool's errand. Senator Clarkson and I spent a lot of time over in the fall and the winter meeting with advocates for tenants and advocates for landlords, and we have produced a bill that is intended to be a compromise bill. And the theory of the bill very simply is we are giving each side what it most wants and saying you can't tell the other side they can't have it. And that's essentially it. And I will very quickly summarize the bill, but be happy to answer questions. It has not yet been introduced. It will be introduced this week in both the House and the Senate, identical bills. It will probably move first in our committee in the House. We're eliminating no-cause eviction in this bill. Eviction is only for cause or for expiration of the lease. The eviction process has been changed so that it is much shorter, 2 months rather than 4 or 6. There is a much accelerated process in the case of drug dealing or other violent action by tenants. Essentially, landlords submit an affidavit with allegations, and within 1 week, there is a hearing, and the tenant has to come in and rebut those allegations if they've been made. The problem is that with violent activity, tenants are afraid to testify on behalf of the landlord. There's expanded no trespass allegations. There's limitations on the frequency and the amount of rental increases, but particularly upon sale of a building. Rent can only be increased upon sale of a building, CPI plus 3%. There's limitations on the amount of security deposits. Serious health and safety code violations are a defense to eviction. Eviction proceedings are kept confidential until judgment. And there's proposed appropriations for positive rental payment credit reporting pilot program. That's an existing program running out of money. And there's an education program run by CVOEO for both landlords and tenants on their rights, obligations, and remedies. And that's, in summary, the bill.
Great. Who has questions? Teddy.
Thank you, Teddy West, Zach Berry City. 2 questions. One, can you go into a bit more detail about what the limits on rent? You said there were limits on rent increases, and you highlighted that one upon sale of building. Curious as to what the other ones are. And was there any conversation about a rental registry put together?
No conversation about a rental registry. Last year, our committee found that there are other ways of collecting the data rather than a rental registry. The governor has expressed his firm opposition to a rental registry, so it's not in here. Glad you asked about the rental increase. The only specified rental increase that has a number is if the building is sold. Otherwise, you can only increase once every 12 months. And we put in the moment in the bill that it can't be excessive or unreasonable. As strange as that is, we haven't figured out a better way to do it. We do not think there would be support for an across-the-board rent control, if you will. On the other hand, we're afraid that if we put in a number, then everyone will raise their rents to that number, and so we have not found the solution to that yet. And so as a placeholder, we've used the words excessive or unreasonable. I'm not thrilled with that. We haven't found anything better.
Peter?
Thanks, Peter Cullen from Cornwall. You talked about if there's violence or drug dealing, that you could file an affidavit and get a hearing within a week.
Right.
What is it going to take to turn that concept into a reality in terms of funding, staffing, that sort of thing?
There is no funding or extra staffing for the judiciary at this point. We think it's within their capabilities. By the way, just to make it clear, there's a show cause hearing. It's kind of a preliminary hearing within a week. If the tenant doesn't come, then it's over. If the tenant doesn't present contrary evidence, then it's over. If the tenant presents under a penalty of perjury, information that's dispositive in some way, then it's pushed to the main hearing, which has to be, the whole thing has to be set within 60 days. So
I actually have a question for you. I have a question. One of your comments was about health and safety being a defense to eviction. Can you expand on that a little bit?
right. So in many states, particularly Massachusetts, for example, if there's an ongoing code violation that hasn't been remedied in a property, that's an automatic defense to eviction. We didn't want it to be just any code violation. We, there are so many details to the code. If somebody could have a step the wrong height or something like that, that shouldn't be a defense to code violation. So there's a list of what I would call really serious violations, like no heat, no water, that kind of thing.
Great. Kat and then Doug.
I remember that Vermont has or had a mediation program that was available to, I think, income qualified Vermonters. Is that program still going to be up and running? Is there any thought that it might be useful to expand it as part of this bill?
I know there exists such a program. It's not in our bill, and I don't know whether its funding is continuing. The only thing that's in the bill that there's a need for funding, there's one 6-figure number, which I promised Rob and I would never do. There's one, and that is the continuation of the rental arrears program, which buys time, not a lot of time, but it buys time for people who have a reasonable chance of being able to make payment in the future, but can't now, like they, got sick or something like that. The other is the CVOEO program is continued. They received a grant for education, and the grant was from the federal government, contingent upon all of the things you might imagine that the Trump administration demanded, and they refused, or likely not willing to sign. So this bill does substitute that grant with a couple $100,000 for a program, which I think could be contractually, they could contract with Vermont Legal Aid, which I think would be a good idea. But that's it. That's all that's in the bill, money-wise.
Doug?
Doug Bishop, Colchester. Question about the no-cause eviction. You had said that we are going to do away with no-cause eviction, but then you said, if I understood correctly, that eviction would still be okay at the end of lease.
Yes, that's correct.
So
Really, this is a classic example of a compromise. On the one hand, from the tenant perspective, and there are countries in the world where when you sign a lease, as long as you make rent, you can stay. On the other hand, the feeling from the tenant community, the landlord community is, look, these are businesses. If they sign a contract for 12 months, they don't want to be signing a contract forever instead. So at the end of 12 months, if you're in a 12-month lease, non-renew, you can non-renew.
One more and then we'll move on. Or two more and then we'll move on. But that's it.
Thank you. Is there anything in the bill that requires a written lease?
No. There's nothing in the bill that requires a lease, written lease. I should say there are several bills on the floor. One from a member of several from members of our committee, Representative Tomlinson. There are other bills, and there are landlord bills as well on the floor. We have taken some things from other bills, but one of the things we did not do was require a lease, or, in my opinion, if you require a lease, you'd want to say what has to be in the lease. And in other bills, that's in there. We did not do that. This bill does not attempt to regulate the relationship to that extent. Like I said, it's a compromise bill.
One last question, Leonore.
Yes, I wanted to know, given that Vermont Legal Aid is in the building today, how the pressure maybe on the courts or added activity might require helping with access for legal representation for more people, and whether the bill speaks a little bit to that,
Um,
whether you had to take that into consideration.
There is a lot going on in that respect, but not in this bill. There is another bill that extends an existing legal aid program and would provide funding for it. That bill will probably come before our committee, but it's not in this bill.
Can you tell us again the status?
This bill, it's written, approved by Ledge Council, and it will be introduced this week. I think it's already been signaled for introduction in the Senate. It's the same bill, but I don't think it's actually happened yet. It takes a few days, but it will all happen this week.
Great. Thank you very much. Okay, we're gonna go to Representative Wood, so she can talk about H 545, an act relating to issuing immunization recommendations.
And representatives.
And representatives.
Good morning, Teresa Wood here, Chair of Human Services and
Zon Eastus from Guilford.
and Bill reported.
Yeah.
So H 545 is regarding, it's a bill that sets out a process whereby Vermont may issue its own recommendations with regard to immunizations. We want to be really clear at the outset, it does not mandate certain immunizations, does not require people to get immunized. That's still personal decisions for the individual. But what we are seeing is there is disagreement in the professional medical community around the Centers for Disease Control immunization schedule. And in fact, this bill was contemplated prior to that in anticipation that there might be such things. And lo and behold, I don't know if we were prophetic or what, but this is a bill that we've been working with the health department on, and it utilizes existing committees, advisory panel, both an advisory panel on funding and an advisory panel on the clinical aspects of immunizations. And the most important thing is that it will give trusted scientific information out to Vermonters. The Vermonters will be able to make their own decisions about what it is that they want to receive and what it is that they don't want to receive. We have an example of this recently with the COVID vaccines earlier this fall. The health commissioner issued a Vermont recommendation, which was different than the national CDC recommendation. Again, it enabled people to have sort of what I guess I would say our Vermont version based upon the science that our health department believes is valid, and issued that recommendation. Also issued what's called a standing order. So the commissioner of health as a physician can issue a standing order that impacts all Vermonters. Means you can go to your pharmacy. It means you can go to your physician. You can get vaccines where they're offered, and you don't need a written prescription for those things. And it will be covered by the state's health insurers, including Medicaid, at no cost to the individual. That's all current law. That's all current. That continues. So that's the basic crux of the bill. And then why don't you speak on a little bit to the sunset aspects?
Yes, and so because we're responding, this bill responds to the CDC as most recent recommendations. We don't expect that this CDC standing will be there forever. So this bill sunsets after 6 years. And so essentially it reverts back to the law as it's currently stated. However, we're going to, part of what we're doing with this bill is also just updating it, bringing it into more modern usage for the word, instead of vaccination appearing in many places, we have recommended immunization. So the bill is actually about twice as long as it probably would be otherwise, because all the language for the sunsetting has to be the returning language has to be in this bill. So it's a little loop-de-loop that we have to work with here. Is that clear enough?
A lot of loop-de-loops in bills. And my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, is that the bill also went through a couple other
Yes.
committees. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. The Healthcare Committee took a drive-by of the bill, and the Judiciary Committee also took a drive-by of the bill. Particularly with regard to judiciary, there are, I was gonna say immunity. There are immunity provisions for healthcare professionals that do not currently exist in law. But because this, and the reason that they're necessary is because the Vermont recommendations were different than the federal recommendations, and so that's why the immunity clause is there. And so our wonderful Judiciary Committee reviewed those and provided no comments. We also did work with the Office of Professional Regulation because there's some stuff in there around pharmacists and updating that so that they are able also to follow the Vermont recommendations. Right? And sorry, we are voting this out this afternoon, so it'll be on the notice calendar tomorrow and then Thursday and Friday.
Great. Any other questions? Then comes.
Hi, Emily Kornheiser from Brattleboro. My constituents are curious to know if you're doing anything to change requirements for immunizations in this bill.
The two-letter answer is no.
Thank you.
Representative White. Oh, we have Representative, sorry, Sheldon. Representative Sheldon.
Amy Sheldon from Middlebury. Thank you for this. Two questions. One is, where will this committee be getting their scientific information from, given the state of our federal system? And then also, why the need for the sunset?
So the information will be coming primarily, although not exclusively, from the American Academy of Pediatrics and the American Academy of Family Practitioners, who are the two leading organizations in the country. Previously, Vermont had solely relied on the CDC, and they have an advisory committee, which is essentially been disbanded. And the reason for the sunset is that we don't know what's going to happen in 6 years. It gives an opportunity for whoever is sitting in our seats 6 years from now to make some decisions about whether or not we should just revert back. It also gives us an opportunity to see how has this law worked in the last 6 years, and to do some tweaks if tweaks are necessary, and maybe people will want to continue with what we are putting in the law right now, and maybe they will want to return to what currently exists. But we felt it was because it's pretty important public health change that we felt that it was worthy of having another look at it in 6 years.
Candace White from Waitsfield, and you may have answered the question, but I wasn't really paying attention, so I was trying to get the microphone.
Well, you've succeeded.
Okay, so basically, this is allowing the state of Vermont to come up with their own vaccine requirements. Recommendations, kind of irrespective of what is happening at the federal level. And that is being decided by our health commissioner or the pediatric academy. Could you?
There is an advisory panel that makes recommendations to the Commissioner of Health. The Commissioner of Health will actually issue the statewide recommendations, and that panel will be using information from the National Academy of Pediatrics and National Family Physicians, as well as other sources of scientific evidence around immunizations. And they will issue a recommendation to the commissioner. And if for some reason the commissioner makes a different decision, that has to be publicly disclosed and be available, front and center on the webpage of the health department. But we don't anticipate that happening, but that was an addition that we made in committee because we felt like there should be public transparency and disclosure if for some unknown reason at the current time there was a difference, but we don't anticipate that.
So once this bill is passed, is it effective on passage, and then we will expect to see some new recommendations
shortly thereafter?
Yes, the bill is effective upon passage. And two, I think that you will see new recommendations shortly thereafter, but I don't have the commissioner's schedule. But yes, it is effective upon passage.
Any other questions? Great, thank you. So that will be on the floor hopefully Thursday and Friday. All right, we're gonna go to Representative Black, who's gonna talk about H 577, which is an act establishing the Vermont prescription drug discount.
Oh, I'm gonna go here. Representative Alyssa Black, here of House Healthcare. Just wanted to really briefly talk about, my head's getting cut off on that, okay. I just wanted to talk about Bill H 577, which I'm hoping to have voted out of committee by the end of this week. You might have heard about this. This is a proposal from the treasurer's office. What this would allow Vermont to do is to join a multi-state discount prescription drug card. So think about something like Good RX that y'all might have heard from. First of all, this is a nonprofit based upon that model, which is multi-states. And I think right now there's currently about 6 states in it. It's actually administered by the state of Oregon. And there are other states that are joining this. What this would do is it would allow all Vermonters, the only requirement is a name, date of birth, and an address within the state of Vermont to access a prescription drug discount plan. And it essentially, the states and Array RX, which is the company that administers it, the pharmacy benefit manager that administers it, it allows them to get higher discounts on prescription drugs, and then they pass those discounts on to consumers in those states. And it doesn't run through your insurance. So essentially, you would have, you would put in your prescription and it would spit out the cost to you. If you use Array RX, where it's estimated on generic drugs, there's an 80% savings. And on name brand drugs, it's a 20% savings. And you could then choose to use this discount drug plan instead of going through your typical insurance. We've been taking a little bit of testimony on it. We're going to take a little bit more this week. It's no cost to providers. It's no cost to the state. It supports our pharmacies, particularly our independent pharmacies, because it does allow for a dispensing fee, which if you delve into PBMs, sometimes pharmacies actually lose money when they dispense medications. And we're just gonna take a little bit more testimony again, hoping to have it voted out by Friday of this week. I keep asking anyone to come forward who doesn't like it, and no one will come forward. Pharmaceutical manufacturers don't have a problem. PBMs actually have not raised any concerns with it. Haven't heard any concerns from insurance companies. It's just in general a way that we can save Vermonters estimated millions of dollars in out-of-pocket costs. Connecticut uses it now, and I think on average, the Connecticut users are saving about $200 per month on their prescription drugs. So, any questions? Happy to.
Angela Smith from Williston. Just having no idea how this works generally between, the layers. Can you say a little bit more about the mechanism to ensure that the savings are fully passed on to consumers and not, kind of eaten into by, say, the pharmacies, like I'm thinking of larger pharmacy?
So Array RX is a pharmacy benefit manager that's contracted with states. It is a nonprofit. And it is really the states who are, because of volume, they're able to negotiate lower costs from the manufacturer. All of those lower costs are passed on to the consumer. So the price that you're given as a discount includes the cost of the medication and a small dispensing fee. So it's not going through, your insurance or your pharmacy benefit manager. No one is siphoning off savings or profits off of it. I shouldn't have used the word siphon.
I think you answered the question that I had. Thank you.
And then I think Michelle.
Hi, I'm Michelle Boslin, Westminster. So I have a question. I mean, it sounds like, if I'm understanding correctly, the payment process for the medication is not gonna happen with your insurance anymore. So how, does that mean you don't do anything with your medication? I mean, like usually you meet, in my current policy, you meet a deductible and then everything is covered 100%. So how does that work? Because like I take a medication that's extraordinarily expensive. How would that work with something for Array RX?
Well, it's purely self-pay. So because it doesn't go through your insurance,
Yeah.
right now, there's not a mechanism in order for your out-of-pocket cost. If you're not going through insurance, there's no mechanism for it to be applied to your deductible. It would be a consumer sort of driven decision-making on whether or not to use the discounted price or to have something go towards their deductible. And we know, particularly with the expiration of the enhanced premium tax credits, we know that a lot of people in the market have actually moved to very high deductible bronze plans. And I think it's a $10,500 deductible. So it's kind of a cost benefit analysis to weigh in. I will say that this question has come up. And we would like to get to a place where the out-of-pocket cost can be applied to your deductible. Right now, there's no mechanism to do that. I think that we have DFR coming in tomorrow, and we're weighing some options around whether or not we should be asking DFR to come up with a plan on how that can happen. We did that a couple of years ago under a PBM bill where discount coupons that people get can go for your copay accumulator, they call it. And we did regulations around that. We would like to do regulations around that. However, there's really not a process right now. So we would need to come up with a process on how something like that would happen. Maybe self-reporting of the patient to their insurance, submitting a claim. That oftentimes happens where things that are out of pocket, you can submit to your insurance company your own claim.
Karen?
Yes, I have two. Karen Zola, suggestion. This is more curiosity. So this sounds great. And you shared how you've heard no negative comments to it. So I have two questions. One, I'm curious how Vermont got into this, because like you said, there are only 11 other states that are considering it. And why aren't all states looking at that? Just seems like, why wouldn't everybody?
Well, I think it's 5 right now that are active in it, but I think there's another 4 or 5 that are looking to get into it. I believe that this was brought to us because the state treasurer heard about it from Connecticut. We actually had the comptroller of Connecticut in our committee testifying on this. They've been in it for about 3 years now.
Hi, Charlie Kimball, representative from Woodstock. Sounds great. Who within, I haven't read the bill yet. Who within state government is managing it on behalf of Vermonters? Is there any management involved? Tell us about that.
There is a board of these states, and if Vermont was to join, then there would be representatives from the state on the board. It would be administered, sort of the technical part of it would be administered through the treasurer's office. They don't anticipate any additional like administrative burden in order to do this. They're not asking for positions. There is a small appropriation in the bill. There's an appropriation of $50,000, and that's really for marketing to, Connecticut didn't market theirs at all, and they're worried about the uptick that they've seen. So the treasurer's office has asked for an appropriation to do marketing. And I think that's based on the medical debt relief marketing that they did last year or this year.
That's an AAR.
Yeah, and AARP was in, and they are committed to also, getting marketing out to all their members. It turns out a lot of members of AARP in the state of Vermont.
Pretty old.
All right, so we have,
Wow, there's a lot of.
2 questions, I think. And Carol, 3 questions with Candace, and then we got to move on to lottery.
This is less a question and more a comment. I'm hearing from a lot of constituents, and I've had, I think we've all had a lot of questions about sort of as the federal government does less and less or more and more against us, however you want to frame it. Opportunities to collaborate with other states is just huge, and I just really appreciate that you all are taking this on. I think it's really important. Thanks.
Imagine if 50 states joined, we would have the largest negotiating power of any PBM or anyone else.
Thank you. Just a quick question. Can consumers receive these drugs in the mail, or must they go through a pharmacy?
There are mail order pharmacies that take this.
And while she's going over to Carol, I think also say how we don't sell the data.
Oh, yeah, so I described it as something you may be familiar with, another prescription drug discount plan. This sells no data. So it is nonprofit and no data is sold, which is
our personal data.
Yeah, our personal data, which is not the same as other discount plans out there.
Carol Odie, Burlington. How is the fee set? How is it? Does it go up? Does it go down? What are the constraints around?
The fee, I'm sorry,
What said there's a small fee?
a dispensing fee. Essentially, that pays pharmacists for the cost to procure the medication, so they don't lose money on buying their own wholesale medications, and a dispensing fee for their administration of dispensing the drug to you.
Okay, probably.
Okay, we're squeezing in one more that we
It's
are
different
really.
for every
moving to lottery.
medication.
Hi, Bridget Burkhardt from South Burlington. In states that have taken this up, has there been any positive impact perhaps on insurance premiums? You think if you're taking some of the costs that the insurance companies are normally covering in their plans sort of out of that stream and consumers are paying them through this other mechanism, has there been any impact? On insurance premiums?
I have to be honest with you, we didn't really talk to other states regarding, their increased costs. I will say that prescription medications have increased cost in general in the US. I think something like 27% over the last 4 years. So, obviously that does go into it a lot, but no, I'm sorry, we didn't take testimony from any state on whether or not it's brought down the cost of care. And since every state has gone up, it hasn't brought it.
Sorry.
But that's a much bigger.
Great, thank you. So we'll keep everyone posted on when that's coming out, hopefully by the end of the week, which means it'll be on the floor next week. Okay, now we're gonna switch to Representative Byron for Gov Ops, who's gonna talk a bill that I think has been introduced. Yes, though I don't know the number. H 669. I don't know the name of it. I'm just gonna, okay, good.
Gotcha on that part.
Thanks.
All right, good morning, everyone. Yes, as Lori said, just touching on H 669, it was introduced by Representative Marcotte and others. And the statement of intent with this bill, as introduced, statement of purpose, is to authorize the Board of Liquor and Lottery to offer lottery tickets and products through the use of mobile applications, mobile devices, and over the internet. So what does that mean? The proposal, which is not a new conversation with the Department of Liquor and Lottery, is to take the existing lottery program and bring it into the realm of apps, internet interface, et cetera. I want to be very clear because there's a lot of confusion on these two pieces often. This is not iGaming, which is like digital casinos. They are proposing to expand the existing product line of the lottery program. Now, the bill itself really just authorizes, okay, I want to back up 1 second. We have not done a bill or an introduction or walkthrough on this yet, and have not slated it for time yet. But Commissioner Knight did flag this as a priority for her. So we do want to have a conversation with them about this lottery expansion. So with that, the bill is not a lot of words. It's about 3.5 pages, and it would authorize the commissioner and the DLL's board to set up the program through vendors, which I believe is a pretty standard practice with other states that have done this. So that's where we're at with this.
I just want to give an example, see if you have this. So when I go to the corner store to buy my gallon of milk and I buy a lottery ticket, I could potentially just buy the lottery ticket through my phone. Is that what we're talking about?
Correct. Yeah, or like a lottery ticket or like a variation of a game within that.
Okay.
Yeah, within that program. And you would not have to actually be in the store buying milk to do so. You could do it anywhere on your phone.
Right.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, start with a question that I have. Thank you for sharing this so early in the process. My question is, funding from the lottery goes to the ed fund. Is there any conversation of how much funding or revenue this would be? Is that part of the reason of why this is the priority?
Yes, this, I have not actually seen the number on paper. It was spoken to, but I believe once fully implemented, they're estimating $5 billion in addition to existing revenue.
Teresa Wood from Waterbury. So you just made sort of like a little other like games or something like that, some other reference. So I'm trying to figure out, is this things like megabucks, things, like where they generate a ticket with random numbers? Does this also include like scratch off kinds of things? And then what are the sort of other things that you just referenced?
So there is like a form of, and I have not actually seen a sampling of like what the spectrum of this looks like. But there are games that act like a scratch off on your phone and other aspects like that. I can't speak with like specificity as to like how it would integrate with like a megabucks or something like that, but I would assume that there is an avenue to purchasing tickets such as that through your phone.
What about the other games
that you said would not be included?
Oh, that's like the iGaming stuff where it's like casino games and things like that, where you're doing like roulette, like poker and blackjack and stuff like that. I was trying to make that distinction because that is another format that other stakeholders talk about. And I just wanted to be clear that this is not that. Yeah.
Hi, Michelle Gosling, Westminster. I'm wondering if your committee took any testimony from people who talk about gambling addictions. My understanding is that after we passed sports gambling problems with gambling issues went up. And I'm wondering if you've heard any official testimony in that, because that's actually a big concern for me.
So when we get into the wagering conversations and updates with the Department of Mental Health, we resource them very heavily when we put sports wagering in place. We have not taken any testimony on this yet, so we have not spoken to it in this vein. But taking independent testimony from this bill when we get into this subject matter on that is definitely on the lineup.
Okay, I look forward to hearing that. Thank you.
Hey, Representative Kathleen James from Manchester. Following up on Rep. Boslin's comments, I had a question, and I guess I'll turn it into a comment. I voted for the sports betting bill reluctantly and was so disappointed to see what the disclaimers and the cautions actually look like in the real world. You know, you watch a TV ad and there's this type that's 4 points and it's gone before you can even read it. And so I'm really concerned. You know, putting something on your phone makes it twice as sticky, exponentially stickier and exponentially more addictive, I think. And so I really hope that taking testimony about how to protect people from putting essentially gambling on their phones in yet another format is top of the agenda. And that it is properly resourced, because I don't recall that we put that much money actually into the mental health fund when we passed the sports gambling bill. I don't remember thinking it was well resourced. So I guess that's common.
Angela Smith from Williston. Similar to Rep. James, I voted for online sports betting and regret it. We have a very hard time supporting this bill. I know we're not at that point yet, but one thing that I'd love the committee to inquire about when taking testimony specifically is, one of the benefits of having to go to a store and purchase a lottery ticket is that there's someone there to look at you. Sometimes, I know there's vending machines as well, but we do have an age minimum in Vermont for playing the lottery or gambling with lottery. And so I'm really concerned about this, the increase of through your phone, you can be any age. And I don't trust age gating. It's, it obviously doesn't work for social media. It doesn't work for most applications. So I would be really, really worried about an increase in youth gambling. And I think we've already seen that with sports wagering. So I hope the committee can take some testimony on that.
Right, Yaroslava from Essex, town. I thought I heard you say that this was a priority for the initiative. Can you share why?
They are just looking at ways to, I believe, I don't want to speak directly for the commissioner, but capturing more revenue.
Yes, yeah, that's White from Whitesfield. Can you just remind us how much revenue comes in right now roughly from lottery and where that money goes? I know a certain amount goes to the ed fund. We're talking about legislation that would bring in maybe an additional $5 million. But how much is coming in and where is that going right now?
Soft number, and it is diverted to the ed fund. I want to say, got it. What's that?
35 million.
35. I was going to say 27. So there we go. Thank you. I think I might be working on it.
Also money that comes out for salaries.
Well, yes, they cover all their overhead expenses for operations and execution of all the programs, and then the money is transferred after the fact through the enterprise fund.
We're good.
Dodge from Essex Town and part of the city of Essex Junction. I think that I would be concerned about what are small businesses and the shops that sell, food and sundries and lottery tickets, what the losses would be for them when somebody stops showing up to their store to get that gallon of milk. And of course, I'd be worried about the household members at home who are no longer getting their gallon of milk and instead are getting 2 or 3 lottery tickets that don't go anywhere. And I think I just want to register that I think this is the most regressive form of taxation of the poorest people in our state. So I would not be supportive.
To the component about the brick and mortar operators, there is something worked into the program where there would be some type of distribution of profit to them.
So we have Emily and then we have Kate and then we're gonna be done and go to lunch.
Hi, Representative Kornheiser from Brattleboro. I would be interested to learn more about, I know that with sports betting, a lot of the conversation was around sort of the demographics from that were very different from some other forms of betting. So I'd be interested to hear who the demographics are of this particular form of lottery as we're taking that on. And if you're taking broader testimony on betting, sports betting, wagering in Vermont, I know there's a lot of betting on futures markets right now available online, and that's not something that we regulate at all. And so I'm curious if you all do have time to take testimony on that. I'd be curious to hear how that turned out.
I have poked at that and it seems like that is governed differently because it operates within like a securities realm. So the ability, my basic understanding after talking to council on this is it's very difficult for us as a state to regulate that because of SEC, et cetera, et cetera. So it seems like that's more of an act of Congress than an individual General Assembly decision.
All right, Kate, last question.
I just a more comment, just so much seems like it could go wrong with this. There's a great deal of, mounting evidence that that is the case. So I'm concerned that we would be headed down the wrong path.
Great, so thank you. So as Rep. Byron said, they have not started taking any testimony on this, so a lot more conversations to come. Appreciate the feedback and questions that you all posed, so Matt can take this under consideration. Again, remember, please, budget address is at 1, so we want you back in your seats at 12:45. Thank you for all of your questions, and we'll see you later.